welcome to the Harwich Select Board meeting for Monday, September 15th. I'm going to take a motion to go in executive session and point out we will be back, but no earlier than 6:30 PM for the continuing part of the open session. So I'll take a motion, Mark.
Mr. Chair, I move that we go into executive session, A, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. SEIU 888, Service Employees International Union, Harwich Management Employees Association, HEA, Harwich Employees Association, HMEA, Highways and Maintenance Employees Association, IAMAW, International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, NEPBA, New England Police Benevolent Association, and this is a revision to clarify acronyms and language added on September 12, 2025 at 11:20 a.m. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Second, anyone?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, Pete?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Aye, and I'm an aye. We will be back no sooner than 6:30. No conclusion. It is still subject to the executive session. So with that, I'd like to ask you to all join me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, start off with staff comments and announcements. Anyone? Might be out of here in 20 minutes.
Great.
Okay. Okay, Pete, you can stay later. Weekly briefings.
So just briefly on the sewer update on 1 East, not much of a change from last week, although I just want to keep drawing people's attention that work will be starting again on Route 39 on the 24th of September. And then over on 2 West, work will begin on Pleasant Bay Road on the 19th of September. So the side projects are still going on in Standage Woods and Priscilla Pines, but those are the big ones that are likely to affect more folks. The Chatham Water and Wastewater Advisory Committee met to review our sewer regulations that we had forwarded over to them in Chatham. They didn't really have any issues with it. Their next step is to make a formal recommendation to the Select Board in Chatham for approval. I don't have an update at all on our other letter that we sent the Select Board related to inclusion of the Great Sand Lakes extension into the IMA. So I'll give it a little bit more time, and then I'll reach out to their town manager and see if I can get a update on that. We did get a reach out. This was something we may have talked about previously from the Dennis wastewater superintendent to set up a initial meeting with myself and Jason Trepagna from wastewater superintendent, just to see what they have going on over there and bring back information to the board related to their, I think, eventual project to develop a wastewater treatment plant over by their DPW in Dennis. The Brooks Academy designer selection team met. They whittled down the 6 proposals they received, and as of Friday, they selected Habib and Associates Architect as the designer firm. The next step is they need to submit their price proposal to begin negotiations related to that. We did get 2 responses to the Walther Road Stairs RFQ that went out. We had 2 respondents. As you can expect, it was significantly more than the $10,000 we had set aside from a gift. So I haven't reviewed those yet. I think they both came in just under $30,000. So once we have some more information on that, I don't know what the next steps might look like related to that particular project. So that's all I have for weekly updates.
Any questions for the town administrator? All right. So public comments and announcements. Anyone from the public wish to say anything at the meeting? Wow. Put them all to sleep. All right, we're going to move on then to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the Select Board meeting minutes from August 25th, 2025, and September 8th, 2025.
Second.
And Anita had a comment to make?
I do have a comment to make. On page 29 of your packet, it's just a Scribner's error. I was comparing what was on the agenda to what was listed on the minutes. And under new business, it goes A, B, C, and D is September National Suicide Prevention, but in the minutes it's listed again as A, to approve the proclamation recognizing September as the National Suicide. It should be D. So it's just a Scribner's error. So we
Anybody have
just-
any
just
other
so that they
changes they want to
match.
propose other than Anita's? Oh, take a motion to accept with the amended change.
Second.
No, I didn't make the motion.
Oh, I
I'll
thought you made
take a
a
motion.
motion.
So moved. Now you can second it, Mark.
Second.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, any further discussion?
I'm here for
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
the. Aye. Aye.
Well, that was quick. It's unanimous. Let's see, the B.
Mr. Chair, I move we vote to approve the following committee appointments as recommended by the Interview Committee. Ellen Collins, Harwich Housing Committee, full member, term to expire June 30th, 2026. And Susan Sear, Conservation Commission, full member, term to expire June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. This was part of the recommendation of the Interview Committee, correct?
That's correct.
So, any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's unanimous. All right. Michelle thought she'd be waiting forever. And yet, here we are. So in this section, we're going to discuss, there's an open meeting law complaint from Ron Beatty dated August 30th, 2025. We need to acknowledge the complaint in an open meeting, which we are doing right now, and have a discussion on what the responses could possibly be. We have legal counsel here from KP Law, Michelle Rondazzo. So, Michelle, I'm turning it over to you.
Good evening, folks. Good to see you in person as opposed to on the screen. As the chair indicated, and mindful of trying to keep to our 20-minute target, I'm going to quickly run through the open meeting law complaint that was filed by Mr. Beatty, which focuses primarily upon language of your agendas. Mr. Beatty, as you may be aware, is routinely watching to see that folks comply with the open meeting law, and our firm is handling several complaints right now on the Cape. So this is not you're not a focal point of any particular, for any particular erroneous application of the open meeting law. In general, his complaint focuses on the sufficiency of the language of your agendas and possible confusion that might arise from the way in which the agendas are organized. I've prepared a draft response, which I believe you folks have. The way I typically do these things, because I think it is just the most expeditious, is I gather the information that we would put together in a response. I look to the Attorney General determinations on open meeting law complaints to see where they've landed on similar issues, and they've considered most of all of these issues in the past. And I put together a response for your consideration, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Basically, at its heart, to the extent that there were any possibility of confusion on the agenda based on how things are worded, whether there's enough information in the agenda items to give the public adequate notice of what and when you were going to be meeting to discuss the matters on the agenda. I've had discussions with the acting town administrator. You may have seen with the agendas, even for tonight's meeting, we've fixed some of those issues. If there's a main point that Mr. Beatty raises is just a little conflation of a couple of executive session purposes into one. And I think it really just comes from back before the open meeting law was changed in 2010. The executive session purposes read differently. And we might just have been still, using some of the old verbiage. But by and large, we've made an argument that we haven't violated the open meeting law, but that we will correct any things that could lead to confusion moving forward, including such things as making sure that start and stop times are noted sort of within the agenda itself. There's no requirement under the open meeting law to put anything other than the start time of the meeting itself. You don't have to put times for each of the agenda items, but where you folks like to do it as a courtesy for folks, just as you did today. There's going to be an executive session. You want folks to know when the board would reconvene in open session. And so for this meeting, for example, we moved that lower down on the agenda, not at the top of the agenda, so that there was no possibility for confusion that folks could not or were discouraged from attending at the start to watch you folks convene and go into executive session. So by and large, that's the gist of it. As I said, I've worked with Tony to make sure that moving forward, any of the sort of technical issues or possible sources of confusion have been corrected moving forward. Happy to continue to work with you folks as necessary in that regard. And if you folks have any questions for me, please feel free to ask.
One of the tangible outcomes is not just the way we're posting the times, but spelling out the initials.
So let me just, when the open meeting law was changed back in 2010, there was sort of this hard and fast rule, no acronyms. Over time, the AG has become a little more relaxed about that because things like PFAS, that's the example I always use. I understand, I think the public, they know PFAS, they don't know poly, whatever PFAS stands for, right? It doesn't roll off the tongue. So there are certain instances where use of initials or acronyms may be the more common form, and the public may more commonly understand those. But as a general rule, the idea is that, what may be common knowledge in Harwich, may not be so to people that live outside of Harwich, and these agendas are meant to signal to anyone who might be interested in the goings-on in Harwich, not just your residents. And so that's a good lens to look through these sometimes as well, would somebody in the opposite end of the state, if they were looking at this agenda, really understand what this meant, whether it's an abbreviation to a location in town or something like that.
Okay, I'm going to open up to the board. Pete?
I guess I'll ask you, thank you for being here, and thanks for crafting the response, but if you could outline what the process is now.
Absolutely. So this is the administrative complaint process at the board level. The board has a set period of time, which we are within, 14 business days from receipt of the complaint, to acknowledge receipt of the complaint, which we're doing tonight, and discuss a response. Thereafter, if you adopt this response with or without any changes, and authorize me to send it on your behalf, if that's your preference, we'd send it to Mr. Beatty. A courtesy copy goes to the Attorney General's office. At that point, the ball is in Mr. Beatty's court. He can decide whether or not he wants to pursue this matter further to the Attorney General. If he chooses to do so, then the AG will investigate. And, their turnaround time is 6, 7, 8 months, thereabouts. They don't have a statutory time period with which they need to act. And they would make a determination as to whether or not they agree that the open meeting law has been violated or not, or whether or not that they believe that if there is an open meeting law violation, any remedial actions that we've taken in the interim have been sufficient. So that's generally, where you haven't had, to my knowledge, a lot of open meeting law complaints where there's been determinations against the select board, then it really is, the expectation is that if it goes to the AG's office, they're going to use this as an opportunity for education to the board with sort of a reminder of what the requirements are moving forward.
And if he pursues that avenue, do we or you get notified by the AG's office that he's done so?
Yes. So basically, after we provide the written response, the AG will write to Mr. Beatty and say, you have until, I think it's 90 days, to move this further down to investigation at our level. The reason why you see this response drafted to the attention of the Division of Open Government and not Mr. Beatty is just sort of a matter of how we've tended to do it, because we're making legal arguments and they ultimately it may be in their laps to address. And so we feel like it makes more sense to direct it that way, and they always want copies of the complaint and the response so that they know if and when our response is issued, and then they have that background material in case he decides to pursue an investigation.
Thank you.
Anita?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you very much.
Mark?
Yes, thank you for coming all the way down to
It's
beautiful
not all the way
Cape Cod.
down. I live on the South Shore, so
That is good.
I love a nice trip on a nice day down to the Cape.
To me, this seems a good point that Mr. Beatty made, because, for example, we use terms like SEIU. A lot of people don't know what that means. So I do see some value in what he brought in. Does anybody ever, can you make a phone call to try to avoid this legal process that we go through? Has that ever happened, that somebody in the public who notices something like that could pick up, call the town administrator, say, hey, would you mind making this change?
It does happen.
Okay.
With, I mean, I haven't seen it necessarily with Mr. Beatty. I have seen it with some other folks, you know, especially someone that is, you know, an active member of your community. They may want to give a courtesy heads up, and as long as we respond appropriately, which may be calling council just to double check and make sure that we've got things right, and that, it can be resolved that way. But the formal process that we're involved in right now, it is a requirement of regulation. I have had folks say, you know what, I'm satisfied with the response of the board, you crafted it, you told them what's what, we get that folks said, hey, yeah, we didn't do that good on this thing, or we can do better moving forward, I'm satisfied, and that's the end of it. And we have had some success with that approach, but, you know, it's really, the ball is in the complainant's court after you folks issue the written response.
And just one other thing, Mr. Chair, through you, when this is all settled, if it would be possible, we could, at a meeting, announce publicly how much this whole process cost the town, for legal counsel and perhaps town, how much time was spent by administration, so people know what this complaint actually causes to the town,
Or any complaint.
or any complaint.
I mean, you
That's,
know, our bills are public record for the most part,
Yes.
so.
I was going to say that.
I think it's important that the public knows what these complaints cost to the town, so they just know that that cost is incurred. And no offense against you, you've
No.
done a wonderful job on this, but I think the public should know what this costs. Thank you.
Jeff?
Michelle, nice to see you.
Good to see you.
And thank you for being here, and I don't have anything to add. Thank you for all your help.
The only thing I'm going to make note of is that, as I was conversing with our former town clerk sitting here, some of the stuff that's being alleged is long-term, long-standing, and it's been happening through various town administrators and various select boards. So to the extent that we can fix anything that's not a dramatic change to everybody, we're amenable. It's just,
Exactly, that's my point, is that a lot of these things, you know, not a lot, but at least one issue that I saw was probably carried over from, you know, administration to administration, and this happens everywhere, right? And, you know, I personally, while I understand all of the goals of transparency that open meeting law furthers, I also do think that, you know, there needs to be room for human error and just honest mistakes. And that those don't mean that, you know, the world is conspiring to hide everything from folks. And that's really what I saw here, was just, you know, some things that we can tweak to make things a little more clearer moving forward, and really just an oops, this is the way we've always done it, and now we realize we're supposed to do it a little differently. That's all.
and ironically, I brought that up because it's in an open meeting, so everybody could hear what the process has been through the years.
Yes.
So-
No, I mean, and I think I said that at one point, you know, like, this is probably just a carryover from something that's been done for many years.
It is most certainly at this point. Anybody have any thoughts? I mean, personally, I would like, Tony, do you have any recommendations? I think we should go with the response, but
I do as well, yeah. We went through a number of things together, so like I said, we made some tweaks. The interesting point about, as you mentioned, we've been doing things for the same way, so just in the last 2 weeks and really identifying when the regular, people were confused because they used to see it at the top and now it's a little bit further down. But sometimes in our efforts, we can confuse the people we actually don't want to confuse, which is our own people. But transparency is important, so these tweaks are beneficial in the long term, so nothing, you know, too significant there.
and it's worth mentioning, I said it last meeting, but it's worth mentioning again, so the public can understand this. You cannot get into an executive session legally unless you're in an open session first. So with people, we're looking at the beginning of the open meeting at 6 o'clock, that was a courtesy time because the meeting had to open in an open session to even get to an executive session. So we were always holding the open meetings at, say, this meeting, 5:15, and then coming back after we were in the executive to resume. So everybody needs to understand that. This may look like a big change, but it's not a change at all. It's just acknowledging the reality that you can't go to an executive until you start to open, and then you come back to open.
And I would just might add, as just a point of interest, I think Mr. Beatty was the individual who, first secured an Attorney General decision that said, hey, if executive session is the only item on your agenda, you better make sure that folks know that you have to open an open session first. So this is really just, it just, more in terms of, arguments about whether the public was confused or whether they weren't confused. And we can always, there's always room for improvement if folks say, hey, you know what, that might be something, we didn't think it was confusing, but if it is, let's think about a way to make it less confusing.
So if we have any more questions for Michelle, that's fine. Otherwise, we need a motion to be able to
Mr.
empower
Chair.
her to use her response.
Make a motion to approve the response crafted by town council, specifically Attorney Randazzo, related to the open meeting law complaint filed by Ron Beatty dated August 30, 2025, as written.
And to send it to,
And to authorize council to send it on your behalf.
yeah.
Duly noted.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the response from council and have them send it to the appropriate parties. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Michelle.
Thank you, folks. I'm going to stick around in case you have any questions about.
This is always entertaining.
Well, I'm
have to
here, you
statement
might as well
policy.
take advantage of me while I'm here, so.
Yeah, but after 7 o'clock, there's a cover charge. Okay, so, moving along to the developing an entertainment policy. This was not designed to actually have the policy, but we slipped in what we could find so far. It has to be rooted in something, some fact. There were a couple of comments made during the period that one of the councils for a couple of the licensees was here, related to, we're not treating everybody the same. And the fact is that the zoning in Harwich Port is really shallow. I mean, you've got the commercial district, but it's 150 feet deep. And then right after that, you have the residential district that's right behind it. So to a certain degree, and Pete brought up an excellent comment about whether you're talking about dinner with associated entertainment and drinking or a bar that has some food, because the noise value of that is fairly significant there. We have to come up with something, and it has to be based on some reality, and the zoning is probably the closest that we could come to that. As you could see by the two that we included, as we did an initial dive in this, there's one that's super detailed, and there's another one that's not quite as detailed. I'm not sure what the board wants to get into, but I think whatever policy we do has to be defensible. My own feelings are, the more you say in a document that it's supposed to be a policy, the more chance you give yourself for a problem. So you should probably stick to identifying what the problem is and identifying what the proposed solution is, so that it covers everybody in that district. And we don't need to do it tonight, but we need to come up with a draft that forms the basis of how we're going to approve our licenses in the late winter. So it's kind of imperative that we have that in place by then. With that, I'll open up a discussion, but it wasn't designed to actually vote on a policy tonight. Anybody?
Mr. Chair.
Jeff? Yeah.
Fire away.
Okay. I'd like to get a better understanding of what isn't working.
Well, I'm sure you're tired of me talking about being in a bar band, but I mean,
No, well, kind of.
music, electrified music travels. And what was said last week, interestingly, was from somebody who wasn't a recording engineer or anything, but bass frequencies are what they call ground frequencies. As a matter of fact, an earthquake has a profoundly low frequency you can feel before you can hear it. The problem is allowing amplified entertainment at all. There's almost no way to curtail it in a shallow district because it travels, and what frequencies travel are the problem. But if you're in a house and there's a significant amount of base energy, you actually can excite the house's structure itself, and it actually amplifies it inside. I'm sure you've heard people approaching an intersection near you from your house that has a huge subwoofer in his car. You can tell from a quarter of a mile away that they're coming. And that's really the problem, because unlike the car, if you live in a house that's in that zone, more and more, to the extent that they're successful at what they're doing, more and more you're hearing more and more crowd noise, which doesn't travel as far. But a lot of, it compounds. You've got, and it really depends, especially on the Cape, of where the wind direction is, what the weather is, what part of the season it is. It travels differently. We can't get into those kinds of measurements. Whatever we'd have to do would have to be applied to outdoor entertainment uniformly so that we don't get into that. Right now, I think somebody made that comment in one of our emails, the noise bylaw was somehow conflated with how we're approaching the liquor licenses, and they really aren't the same. It's supposed to be, one of them really deals with somebody's getting a house built next door to me, and the guys started at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm making a complaint to stop them because they're making a lot of noise. This is a repetitive thing. For every night, you're going to be sure that they're going to be using the license to its fullest. So we got to figure out where that limit is. So that's where the identification problem is.
Sure, and I appreciate that. And I'm not saying there is or isn't a problem. I'm simply trying to gain and gather more information to understand where this board feels, we may have some influence. So with respect to the number of complaints and the number of violations specific to noise over the last, well, in 2025, do we have any data on that?
I don't know, I wasn't prepared to have that discussion tonight. We could get that data. But I will say, there's been a lot of, not me, it's you going on here. So there's been some generic noise complaints where it always winds up being, it wasn't me, it was you. It was your next door to me, it's your sound that's traveling, not mine. And this was all motivated by, we did try to tackle this license by license. And it was all motivated by the fact that the licensee, two of the licensees pointed out they felt like they were being treated differently. So to the extent we want to grapple with this problem at all, it really needs to be a uniform solution in the zone, as opposed to we're picking on you two guys, and if we get less complaints about you and more complaints about Mark, we're going to pick on him this time. It has to be a uniform rule that everybody can conform to, and it has to be something articulable.
So my last question before I yield and turn it over, and then maybe have an opportunity to speak again. When you mention the word zone, are we specifically talking about Harwich Port?
That's what I was anticipating, because it's a vexing thing to handle, because that's where the problem really is. Nobody, before there was a port, there was a Butner's. Nobody made any noise from that. That whole strip was a completely different thing. It's become essentially a really, I mean, this is a success to a degree. It's become a very successful entertainment area for, drinking with your friends, having food in a restaurant. But with that has gotten to the point where there's a lot of noise going on, and it doesn't seem to be abating. And to do it one-off is becoming a problem, because they quite rightly are saying, you're picking on me specifically. Show me the complaint data that shows that I'm worse than he is.
So we're intending to craft a policy for Harwich Port and not the rest of Harwich?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand the landscape here. I reached out to Jen in administration to get both of our entertainment license noise information, as well as Chapter 189 in our bylaws noise, 189.1 to be specific. Read them this morning and this afternoon. So I'd like to yield now, hear from the rest of the board to see how they feel about creating a zone-specific policy.
I will point out, we do already treat that zone differently, because we do restrict for several licenses to have outdoor acoustic entertainment. We don't do that elsewhere. So we're already doing something.
Something different. Okay, thank you. I'll yield.
Mark?
Sure. Yeah, I looked at the two proposals from Falmouth and Wellesley. I think Wellesley is a totally different community than Harwich. I mean, the people who, the owners of the companies here need to make their money in 3 or 4 months versus in Wellesley, it's a year-round community and you know, it was just a little bit too complex. I'd like the Falmouth policy. I think we can, and you know, if some of the owners of the bars, if you haven't seen that policy, I think it'd be worthwhile to take a look at. We can look at that. What I got in the reading of some of the letters from the people who live in the area, it's what's come up recently is crowd noise. It's just something to look at that. Outdoor entertainment after a certain hour is an issue. I did like one of the letters we saw is a proactive approach, so that the police don't have to get involved as much, or if the police are involved, they give you a ticket, and not to put the neighbors in such a spot that they're calling the police all the time. So, you know, live amplified outdoor music does seem to be a problem. I've saw some times of 5 to 8 p.m. outdoors, which could work. Limit the days of amplified outdoors, but that's what I saw, and I'm glad to see there's people who live in the area and some of the business owners, because I think, you know, I wasn't on the board, but the board previous to me and Anita being there did a wonderful job, and I keep hearing we've kind of closed the gap, that it's, you know, things have improved, but that's what I'm hearing now. Crowd noise, amplified music after 8 o'clock, and I think we can, you know, we've got enough time to go back and forth on this and to work it out, so.
And again, I'm not looking at these two policies as being the be-all and end-all. We're going to adopt something because we need to hear more from the public too, and that would include the owners. So ultimately, this is just a starting point so we can have the discussion. Anita?
Right. Yeah, I can understand. It's just a starting point. And I did read over the town of Falmouth's entertainment regulations, and I did read over Wellesley. And like Mark said, I will concur with him that Wellesley was a little bit more in-depth. I think Falmouth was a little more simplified. I liked Falmouth. There was some tweaks we could do on some of the letters that we've received from the public. There was one, I could look into some regulations, but these are a good starting point. And I think if we can work together as a town, as a board, you know, with the owners to try to come together with a policy that would, how do I want to say this, kind of not make everybody happy, but we could all come to some conclusion would be the best for, I think, for our summer residents, our year-round residents, our people that are here, and, well, you know the gist of where I'm going, try to make it a more amicable regulation.
Pete?
To be honest, I didn't have a chance to read either one of them, so,
One's short, one's long.
yeah, and at some point, I will, but to, I guess specifically to touch on what Jeff asked, is what's not working. In my opinion, there's a few things that aren't working. Primarily to me, as I stated last week, the number of calls and complaints filed with our police and fire departments. The fire department specifically for occupancy concerns, and the police for the noise concerns. At this point, it's getting to a level that is, well, it's not acceptable to me, and it's taken away from the actual responsibilities of the two departments, especially when they're unfounded. The other piece that bothers me is when we have licensees calling on other licensees as opposed to trying to work together. So there are many things that aren't working. I've got my own thoughts or opinions related to whether it's amplified music in certain times of the days that it might be acceptable or not acceptable. I have my own thoughts of when any outdoor entertainment should end, as opposed to based just on a liquor license. And I'm glad you brought it up, Mr. Chair, but I truly believe that we need to decide if we want to be a community that has restaurants that serve alcohol, or if we want to be a community that has nightclubs downtown that occasionally serve food. I think there's a big distinction between the two. And the only other thing I'll mention is, you know, we can talk specifically about Harwich Port right now, but let's not lose sight of what used to go on in West Harwich and what could go on in West Harwich in the future. So to me, it's not just Harwich Port. It's a little more global than that in the town, and I think we just need to be cognizant of that as we develop any type of policy. Thank you.
Richard?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Scavi, Ms. Clark, Richard Waystack, Harwich. Three of you mentioned appeasing the neighbors and the occupants. But you also have to bring the businesses into the discussion. People bought homes knowing that they were abutting the commercial district. The commercial district has been there for a long time, and it does run the entire length and runs into West Harwich, which everyone should be treated the same. But you've got to come up with a solution that works. We cannot be a community that says no to business. It's essential. People are going to have to work together. I understand the complaints of some of the neighbors. I get that. And there are some issues that the town has. But we need to bring all parties to the table and not just appease one segment of the demographic of this community. Business owners put a lot of time, energy, and as you see, buildings being built at millions of dollars and businesses going in there. You know, there's an investment that people are making into this community. I'm a business owner. I own a building in downtown. I've dealt with it for 25 years. But you need to bring everyone to the table so that is a full discussion that something can work. There are compromises that can be made, but we can't just talk about the folks who are living in their summer homes or year-round homes. We need to bring the businesses to the table as well.
And perhaps you missed that part, but I've said this is not designed to actually vote on anything tonight. We're definitely going to have to have a public hearing, and we need to have some sort of basis for what policy we're developing before we do that, or else there's no point in having a public hearing. The only thing I will say, just as a matter of fact, there's the commercial district and there's the commercial district. I don't think we were talking 30 years ago about too much noise behind Bonats, too much noise behind Butners. The type of businesses there are generating a different noise, actually, than the people that used to be there, which is a good thing because that means we have a resurgence and we have businesses that are stepping in to take place. I hesitate to say this, but Dennisport has had a generational problem with rebuilding Dennisport because once you let a district go, it is so difficult to let it, to bring it back again. So nothing we're doing here is supposed to be punitive. It's to try to figure out how. Not everybody did buy their house when these bars were here. Some of them bought their houses long before. So as a realtor, you know that. So the fact is we're trying to figure out something that is not punitive, that's something we will allow them to operate and allow them to be vibrant, but it also allows some peace and quiet to the general public. So that's the balance we're trying to achieve.
If I could, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Richard. I'm glad we're not here to make any decisions because I'm as far away from that place, I think, as I could be. Economic support and economic development for me, for our town, is extremely, extremely important.
Getting
He's
choked up.
sad.
Perfect timing, Mark. Equally as important for me is our residents and the ability for our residents to have a comfortable place to enjoy when they're at home. So I would like to propose to this board for a discussion, since this is the jumping off point, that we form a subcommittee. And I would be happy to be on that subcommittee, and I would actually like to see my partner on my left here, Mark, be the other one. No offense to the rest of you, the three of you.
We go to bed early.
I know you do, I know. So I think that there needs to be discussion with and I've already begun to call and discuss with our stakeholders, our business owners. I think we need to have open public discussion with the business owners, open public discussion with the residents, and then a collective discussion. This can't be taken too lightly. I don't want to create a problem because we're trying to fix a problem. I think this needs a lot of work. I didn't like Falmouth, and Falmouth, in my opinion, I know you have to do something, but noise from outdoor entertainment shall not be audible to a reasonable person beyond the property line. I don't know how
It's pretty difficult with the sidewalk in front of your building.
I don't know how that applies to our town at all.
It doesn't, and it wasn't supposed to. I was trying to show you just how all over the map these things are.
And I get it, I get it. You know, so I would propose a subcommittee. I would also propose something, if I had to pick something today, I would say, let's put 2 police officers from 8 o'clock to 1:30 on foot in the town of Harwich from June to September 5th, on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then the public may feel more comfortable, the business owners may feel more comfortable. To Pete's point, if you've got, I think you use the word unfounded, right? I mean, what a waste of time for our police, right? That's, you know, unfounded complaints. And then businesses side by side calling in, they're shooting each other in the foot, because that's probably a large part of why we're here having this discussion. So, you know, I don't know. I think we're so at the beginning of this. Thankfully, we have some runway. But I would like to kick around that subcommittee and then a report back to this board over the course of the next several months to gain some more information.
Sure. Couple of things. Relative to the subcommittee, if you do that, you're going to be posting every time you meet.
Absolutely.
So, number 2, you have to be able, we're not at the point where we have anything to bounce off of. So somewhere along the line, we're going to come up with a consensus about what we're trying to achieve, and then try to figure out how that is neutral to both the businesses and, you know, the folks who live in the area, because we owe it to all of them, actually. I'll tell you this, I mean, and this is for my favorite realtor friend, if I were looking for a house and I could get one for $1 million right behind Route 28 in that section, or I could get it in East Harwich, I know where I'm going. Because to enjoy peace and quiet is basically one of the purposes of getting an ode. So,
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, I bought right behind Ember. I want to be in this neighborhood. This is, for me.
you party guy, you.
Well, no, not at all. I'm in bed at 7:30. It's already almost past my bedtime right now, but, you know, I like being able to walk into Harwich Port, and I think a lot of people forget. When I was 16 years old, Harwich Port was very busy. Thompson's Clam Bar used to have cars parked all the way out Snow Inn Road, all the way up Route 28. It was a traffic disaster. And anybody who was here in the 70s and 80s would know that. The people who weren't here in the 70s and 80s are looking at this going, hey, this is something new for the town of Harwich. Not really. We were a busy community until a certain somebody came in and gobbled up all the property and changed the landscape of what Harwich Port was.
Not Richard.
No, Richard just sold all the landscape. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we could litigate when the theater burned, when the theater went down, or when Port
I know.
got built. That's not the point. The point is, it is where it is. And how do we do this so that we don't mess up the business dynamic at the same time as making sure that the residences are somewhat assured that they have some insulation? And Mark made a point. It's like, maybe we find a divide where it has to do with time.
Sure.
The only thing I can caution you is before we start, that's why I put it on, and I do this often now. There's no conclusion on some things. There has to be a start point for everything, and I don't necessarily anticipate walking out with an answer when we're doing that. So this is one of those. But if we're going to have a discussion about deployment of assets, then the police chief's going to have to be here, because just the numbers you presented, we have 4 quadrants that run 4 squad cars throughout Harwich overnight. And knowing the shift strength, if you take 2 people and push them on foot in Harwich Port, I'm not sure where he's getting the assets.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, but however, discussion is how ideas are going to be brought to the table.
And we'll get the chief in too, I guarantee it.
So
And it'll be, I guarantee you, the other thing is that there'll be a public hearing as opposed to an agenda item, so that we can actually approach this so that everybody's invited to the table.
No, feel free. Don.
Fight it
Oh,
out.
go ahead.
Go ahead, fight it out.
He'll win. So real briefly, I'm not on board with the subcommittee at this point in time. I think it's still too new and fresh for me to digest that. Perhaps that's where we get to. you know, I think if, in the end, we do this well, both sides will be unhappy, right? So that's usually how you get to a point where you know you did something right. And nothing, to steal a phrase, nothing scares me more than we're here from the government to help. It just doesn't go that way. So, let's think about the experts.
Says the guy who's serving in the government.
Yeah.
Tony?
I've dealt with some of these things in the past. I think one of the things the board may want to consider, or at least, you know, throw around, it's nice to bring people up and stand at the podium or stand at the table, but as we know, in the community of Harwichport, we have our business community, which is very important. We have our residents that are right there. It's really about coexistence, right? How do they work with each other? And I think format becomes important. I would actually suggest maybe the potential for a business and resident roundtable in Harwichport with the business owners and residents in the area, because sometimes the best solutions come from outside. So then the board can take that under consideration for when it needs to have the actual public hearing to finalize any, you know, type of regulation. And to Mr. Handler's point, I don't think putting police officers there, but many towns have gone to community impact officers. We had them in Bourne, where they can be in these particular areas as basically the eyes and ears for the police department, if something should happen where they need to call them. But they're a resource for the residents and the business owners in a particular area to interact with, monitor what's going on, seek help if they need to, maybe manage the Uber things at the end of the night. And if you're really thinking out of the box, you never know, the business owners may like the idea and pay for it, right? Because it helps them, helps the residents, and helps others. It's not a huge cost, but they chip in together, so everybody has buy-in for whatever the ultimate solution is on the business side, but also to make sure we take into account the residents' concerns. So I think sometimes when you take I'll call it the problem to them for the solution on their turf, I think sometimes you get more dialogue, more things that you can perhaps do than in the meeting room, which would come later, but just some things to think about.
Taylor Powell, owner of Perks. I have music all the time. I've been doing it for 15 years. Maybe you have some questions for me. Maybe you don't. I don't know. But I'm down there every day, and I'm doing it down there. And this town was busy maybe before my time. I was born in 1978. I did go to Thompson's Clam Bar. I do remember how busy it was. I grew up here as a kid. My grandmother had a house here. My mom was the first female Yarmouth cop. I have big roots here. I invested my whole life here. I got married here, kids here. I employ musicians to the point of $20,000 every summer. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Police detail, I'd entertain that, no problem. Not to disagree about anything. But I know people that buy purposely close to town because they like the music and they want to come to the restaurants. That this place was sleepy before I got here. I was going out of business. I would go to the chamber meetings, which was ran by Mr. Bob Reed in the past, before Cindy came in, and they had music stroll every Wednesday, or every other Wednesday, I'm sorry. And I would beg them, let's do it every Wednesday. This is great for the merchants. This brings people to town. They're going to come back the next day. They're going to see a garment or a gown or a book in a window, and they're going to come back and they're going to eat dinner and they're going to go, and that's happened. I went to Chatham because Chatham tried to do the stroll on Wednesdays. I fought for that. because it's going to interfere with our strolls on Wednesdays. And the town supports a music stroll where we could be loud from 5 to 8. We like the increase in property tax. We like the economic impacts, right? These property values going up. But now we're complaining like we're too busy. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. That I think there's been a big dividing line in some of these businesses like we're the enemy. I'm not the enemy. I love this town. I want to work with you guys. Let's do something. You want to sit down at a round table? Let's sit down at the round table. But I have some suggestions that I think could make this thing better. And if you want to hear them, I'm all about it. And that's why I came tonight. I'll just throw it out there that when some of these noise bylaws were put into the music permits years past, I flew up from Florida. I spent a lot of money away from my family to come here and fight for this because I believe in it. And they said, we're going to do this as a trial run. We'll see if it works. So if it's not working, they said they would fix it. Well, maybe it's your turn to fix it. This was the old board, right? that there's a big problem with what you had mentioned, Peter, about this anonymous calls. This is total BS, because they're unfounded. So that person needs to they can't just say, I'm so-and-so, and then they come down. I understand, I talked to Chief, which he's not here tonight, but if they get the call, they gotta come investigate. But the system's being abused, and it's a waste of resources. Then there's a hearing, then you guys have to hire counsel, and then my time or someone else's is wasted, and then the officers have to come in, all just chasing this goose around, and it's ridiculous. That if it is a commercial district, and we do have noise, whether it's music or not, we should be supportive of that. And it's the summer season that, this is a vacation town. There's no straying away from that whatsoever. Yeah, there's residents here around. I have a house here as well. But the whole, that section, that downtown corridor, it's all about the summer. It's not 3 months, it's just July and August. So maybe there's a solution that there could be a noise level where the cops aren't involved, those resources aren't being wasted, and it's just during those July, August months. And then we go back to normal when this is all said and done. Or instead of 150 feet, it's a little bigger of a buffer. That way they can't just call and waste, because God forbid, someone's on the other side of town get hurt and the officer can't be there in time because he's chasing some stupid noise call because someone wants to complain on somebody. The other thing I wanted to say is I don't call on another business, so I wanted to correct you on that. Just because people call on us doesn't mean I'm calling on them.
We never said that.
Oh, well, I assume that. So I just want to make that clear that I'm not calling on anybody else. I hope everybody does well in this town. I don't wish any ill on anybody. I just think that going backwards would be a real bad move here, that Harwich is cool. And it's cool because of the music. It's because of those strolls, that those people from outside towns come to Harwich on Wednesdays. You know what, then they come back. And yeah, it's gotten busier. Chatham's jealous, Dennis is jealous. We don't need to reverse anything that's going on here whatsoever. So I'm gonna be a strong supporter of keeping this thing going, because the revenue, the meals tax and the revenue that with this growth, I mean, I don't have the numbers, you guys do, but before you make any drastic decisions or changes, there should be an economic study on this music. And you could really prove that because of live music, it's elevated the growth in this town. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them, but we do our best to control the sound. Unfortunately, some people that live in the commercial district don't like it, but if you don't like the airplanes, don't live next to the airport, basically. That's kind of where I'm at with that.
Okay, but as I said, we're not at the point where you're
I know.
discussing. We're
You're
going to
gonna-
have
you're
a
gonna-
meeting where that is the focus, gathering data. The only thing I will say, because you're not catching the central point here, as long as we have a lawyer sitting in the audience, over my period of time here, I mean, I go back to the early 70s vacationing, so I understand. I used to remember going out in the Golden Eagle and seeing Thompsons from the water. And I can vaguely remember, Butners and some of the other stuff that was in the middle of town. With that, we used to have the entertainment license decoupled from the all alcohols license or malt and beverage. It is now part of the licensure. And part of the problem with that is it's extremely difficult once you grant something to ungrant it later on. I mean, I'm sure that you've seen evidence of that. It's hard. So we need to get this right from the get-go, because once you start granting stuff, it becomes part of your right under the license, and you'd have to really have a real problem to go to the ABCC and demonstrate that you can pull back something. So we're at a juncture now where we're trying to fix it. We're not trying to fix it by denying everything to everybody. So we're trying to figure out where that is. That's why I think Pete's right, though. I mean, because I remember when Clatta was around and they had a severe problem where their amplification by the pool was actually going up the Herring River. I mean, it was actually, the corridor was amplifying it, so it got louder the further you went. So West Harwich still has its own problems. But this is an identifiable thing that we really need to get everybody put on the same page somehow. So we're not going to do that tonight. What we are going to do is identify what the problem is, and we've just discussed that. Problem isn't isn't that there's too many people. The problem is that there's too much noise from the people and the type of thing that's going on with that. It's, so at some point or another, we have to discuss what we're allowing outside versus inside. Because nobody's making a raid at being able to do entertainment inside. The problem is that outdoor entertainment, depending on the night and depending on the atmosphere, travels. I mean, you can't get away from that. So we need to come up with a reasonable solution, and it's not a solution that we're hoping to cut our meals tax because we don't want anybody coming here. I recognize for a fact Chatham, by the way, does have those specials. They're not specials, but
They call them community impact,
yeah,
Provincetown
I
has
see them
and other
roving around a
communities.
lot. Now, the question is whether we have the capacity to hire anybody like
I
that.
just gave you a funding source.
Yeah, thanks.
But he's spot on, that's exactly where my head went.
Okay,
Right?
well, it may
Businesses
be,
can-
and that may be the answer. So we're open to anything. It's not a discussion tonight that we're going to finish, but because a lot of times we don't spend the time that's necessary for something that we know that's going to have a major impact, and this is one of those times. We're not going to be doing anything this week or next week, but we're going to try to explore what it is, define what it is we're trying to do, and then try to get everybody to be, come to a meeting so that they can express where they think that line should be drawn.
If you guys ever want to work with me or talk to me privately or have a meeting, I'm happy to
know
help.
where you are.
Anytime, outside of here, whatever it may be, emails, happy to help with anything.
And I
just don't wanna
totally
go
understand
backwards
what
on
you
this
just
thing.
said, too. It's like vendettas have no place in this either, because it's really difficult to prove a negative. I mean, somebody makes a call, says, this guy's making noise all night and all day, and if they make that call 5, 6, 7 times over the course of 2 weeks, it starts becoming real just because as Mr. Handler said, how many calls and complaints do we have? I'm not sure that's indicative of what we're trying to get at. It's not like he has 12 calls, you have 10 calls, so you're a bad guy. We're trying to figure out what overall fits that spot in a way that you guys can be able to thrive, but not in a way where it tries to infer itself on people. Now, part of this was on us. Both of our chiefs agreed that we could do a better job on the 4th of July weekend, because there was a lot of noise, and it wasn't from the outdoor entertainment. There were tons of people on the sidewalks because people were not allowed in, thankfully, because all of the owners were abiding by the license that said they couldn't put any more people in there until they got someone coming out. But then it's on us to control the crowd. So there's a real complicated situation. I think what Tony's saying has some merit. Maybe we come up with some sort of cooperative mechanism to fund those officers so that they're always there. And then the shenanigans of, well, if you'd come here 20 minutes ago, you would have heard Taylor's place was booming with noise. That stuff becomes nonsense if it just keeps happening. And I know that. So we're not trying to do that.
Okay.
I can assure you that. And I can assure Jeff of that, too, because you don't want to kill, as they have consciously put in the bathroom of one of the adjoining facilities near you, that I had once said that it was the golden goose of Harwich Port, and I do believe that. Because I remember that you could shoot a cannon down Route 28 in February and not hit anybody, right, Richard? So there was a time that it was completely dead.
I appreciate you guys just hearing me out on this. Maybe I'll get to speak again in the future. I know you're a musician, Don, so maybe this hits home with you. If someone to strip you of this and this was your source of income, you'd probably want to fight for it too. But there's a lot of people that aren't going to come to these hearings, that aren't going to speak up. And a lot of them are little kids dancing with their moms and their dads, and people enjoying this thing. And people that are just coming in and they rented a house, and maybe a realtor or whoever is benefiting from that week-long lease. But that family's here spending money here, which helps the whole big thing. And those people have a voice, but needs to be heard as well. Because they're not going to be out here speaking up. There's going to be a handful of people complaining about it's too loud. You got to kind of filter out some of that noise.
At the end of the day, I expect that there will not be a rule that puts everybody out of business because we don't want any entertainment anywhere. Don't worry
I
about
won't,
that.
I won't keep you in mind. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So, again, I think our next step is to,
Yes.
Yep. Hi, Walter Mason, Miles Street.
hi,
All right, how are you? I just want to say, I'm one of those people that moved to the center of town from the other side of town because of what Harwich has become, And I think it's important, you're having this now in the fall, but if you had this in the summertime when all the summer residents are here, because they're residents too, they could tell you how important the downtown is to them. I mean, I can walk there, it's been amazing. As far as the music goes, I think they've done a great job. I was on the noise committee, there was problems, yeah, it went till 10 o'clock, there were bands at night. I think they did a great job. He only goes till 8 o'clock now, he goes 5 to 8. I mean, it's summertime, it doesn't get dark till 9, so I don't see that the music is such a big problem downtown. Maybe noise at night or something like that could be, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. I think you can come up with something that's good for everybody.
I'm not making this up, though. We just had recently requests for outdoor entertainment that was amplified that was 10 or 11 o'clock. So we need to define.
Well, that's up to you guys to
That's what
decide
I'm
where you're
saying.
going to
That's
make
what
the
part of this
cutoff.
discussion is, to define where everything can work so that Taylor can thrive, but at the same point in time, we're not interfering with,
Right, and I'm just talking live entertainment, not sound systems, radios or stereos at night, or the TV at the venue or something.
And that's where the original entertainment licenses came from. If you wanted to have like a TV on and radio blaring, that was an entertainment license with live dancing, just in case somebody felt compelled to stand up.
Yeah.
So,
Don't think that non-amplification is a good idea, because unless you're, sitting on the beach in a circle singing Kumbaya at the park, I just don't see how that can work on an outside basis, or a venue that has other things going on that might be interfering, just people eating and, noise, kids playing around, things like that. It's just,
and there's a disparity to the actual different clubs or restaurants, if you will, too. So some rely a lot more on outside and some are inside. The real problem here is where do you let the line draw?
I mean, I
The ones that
consider
are
my-
inside can easily hire somebody on a guitar with his own rig
Right.
that's amplified, and it's going to be contained to the inside.
I consider my back patio, and I can hear some nights who's the Mariners playing. I can hear who comes up to bat, what their batting average is, all of that. And I think it's great. It's summertime. You want it. It sounds, it's what you want to hear. I like the entertainment. I like the activity in the summer. It's only 2 months, 10 months here. I grew up here, and there were times you were probably dealing more house parties than with the entertainment downtown, but
Yep.
it's always been something.
Got it. So
All right.
please come back when we
Your
have
house
it.
party. If I'm not mistaken.
My parents.
Yeah, your parents.
That's the other thing. My dad's 96, my mom's 93. And they go downtown to Perks. They were there the other day. They go there for the music. They live at the Anchorage. Their windows are open. The parking lot side, they can hear it. They think it's great. My dad-
Luckily for you, with the admission that you had the parties, you're not being, you're not at the mic, so nobody heard you.
Hey, guys, real quick, I won't be long or anything, but Ted Wyman, I live in Dennis now, so I'm not a Harwich resident, but I am a musician. I do this full-time. It is my job. I make a good living at it. It's not just a hobby or a once-a-week thing. I do anywhere between 300 and 500 shows a year, and a lot of them in the town of Harwich, which I love, to be so close to home and do this. So the only thing I'll say is, when you talk about having a subcommittee and you want an open public discussion, you mentioned owners and residents.
Musicians.
And make sure, I know Don doesn't need to be told, but make sure to include us too. We're not just some amorphous body. Some of us are here once a summer, and some of us you can't get rid of because I'm here every day somewhere. So make sure you include us in this too, because it does direct impact our ability to make a living as well, which is.
And I'll restate again, there's differences about where it is you're talking about, because I've been to Wacquasit this year and CBI, and they had some great music with two pieces, maybe a single pole, speaker, self-amplified, and it's really nice.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything there that was surrounding them. So the answer is we got to get together so that we can all work on this together.
Yeah, just don't forget about us too.
I
Thank you.
won't- At least I won't. Okay, so the next step, we have to, I'd like to get from each of the members what their biggest concern is that they feel that we need to address. And if you have any proposals about how that might work for your particular view of this, then submit them so we can get this re-agended and we can have a basis for a conversation that we can work on. But we need a solution too, so if you come up with a problem, your task is to come up with a potential solution to the problem. Pete?
Other than the length of the discussion, I like Mr. Schiavi's idea of bringing the folks who are actually part of this, I don't want to call it a problem, the situation together. And so I'd like for us to explore that more so than our individual concerns as to what, what we want to see fixed. Is it Mr. Powell? Is that,
Taylor, yeah.
I greatly appreciate you coming tonight. This wasn't a night to make a resolution to the ongoing debate. However, I appreciate you taking the time, coming before us and sharing your thoughts and opinions. And I think if we can get more folks like Mr. Powell together in the room with some of, folks on the town side who can articulate reasons that either things need to be modified or adjusted, then we're going to land in a much better place than the five of us throwing things against the wall, hoping that we have a solution.
How do you see that starting?
That's the discussion I want us to have, whether it's next week or the week after, as opposed to our own concerns. How do we make this group come together to begin the process?
Who is the group?
Yeah.
May I speak? Mr. Chair, do the business owners, we get some letters from some of the people who live in town. I wouldn't want to divulge what their names are, but could we send them some of this correspondence? I don't know if you're getting it. If it's not in your packet. Some of the, like I received 2 or 3 letters from people who are concerned about it. I wouldn't mind having you look at that, but redact their names and addresses so you can at least see where they're coming from. And some of the issues that they're, do you get any of this feedback that we're receiving from some of the?
He's been here enough, he knows.
I've been out of town for 3 days. My daughters, I missed them going to bed tonight to be here. So thanks, Peter. I appreciate you pointing that out. This means a lot to me, yes. It doesn't mean that much to me that I didn't get to read the packet because I didn't have time because I was out of town. So I knew there was a meeting. I wanted to be here. I'm happy to look into it. I'm happy to talk to whoever. Some of these neighbors used to come hang out and enjoy it. They don't do it anymore. It's just too bad because it was pretty cool when they all used to be cool. So,
No, I just think you should be aware of their viewpoint, just so you're not getting blindsided. And
yeah, no, I'll look into it. I'll read it as well. Yeah.
And if it's not in the packet, let Mr. Schiavi know, and we could probably redact their names, so you at least see the content of what they're sending us. So you see the other side. And I think that would help clarify a lot of things.
Okay.
All right, we're going to bring it back, but I have a feeling that what Tony was talking about is going to form the basis for the discussion. Be interested in knowing how much they're paid and what the deployment is in Chatham.
Yeah, I'll see, I'm sure the chief lives across the street from me, so.
Because they
I'll
have
pay him a
another
visit.
problem. I mean, those people are deployed in their parking lots all day long during the day, and I'm pretty sure that what we're looking for is on the district and deploying them. But we can't do it in a way that detracts from public safety elsewhere.
No, and I love Tony's point and suggestion. I think it's a great one. Like I said,
good starting point.
discussion just breeds more discussion and ideas, and sooner or later, we're going to land on something that sticks, and we'll have buy-in from all sides,
Okay.
I hope.
And for those who are suspicious about the timing, there is no better time because, again, we got the licenses that we have to deal with in March. So the time is now to try to figure out what we want to do. All right. Recommendation on the license agreement for Dockside Restaurant at the Harbor. Tony.
So this is the time of year for a couple of places. This one is with the Dockside Restaurant at the Harbor. They operate out of a town facility there, and we have received a email request for them to get an extension for next year. So the way the proposal went out, it was for a 3-year time period with two
options.
1-year extensions. This is the second of the two. If you saw in the packet, not only am I recommending approval, but I also reached out to John Harker, the harbor master, as well as the health department, just to get feedback from them on how things went. They were all extremely complimentary of his operation and how he's doing business. I've ate there a couple times this summer. It was excellent, very well received. I think everybody has really enjoyed what they've had to offer. So my recommendation is we approve their 1-year extension. And just as a side note, I think you probably read what the harbor master said. At some point, we do need to have a discussion about upkeep and maintenance of both the building itself, but also the interior, because by contract, the town provides all the furniture, fixture, and equipment to run that place. So we'll have some discussions during budget time of what the best mechanism for that might be, because right now, it's not in anybody's budget.
I will say, just before everybody considers this, for those who weren't here at that point, they inherited this from the prior lessee. So we wound up having to negotiate, but it wasn't even new when they moved
Got it.
in. So we did buy it off of them, but now we have a turnkey operation that we're basically telling whoever it is who takes over, you can run this with what we've given you.
Correct.
And they're not responsible for upkeep and maintenance of that stuff.
Yep, so we'll come up with a plan for that.
So does anybody have a motion to make?
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the acting town administrator's recommendation on the license agreement for the Dockside Restaurant at the harbor.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to exercise our option to renew for 1 year. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's a vote. Okay, draft budget guidance. I gave it a shot, but it's there for everybody to, say what they want to say about what it says and possibly provide us any edits, but we have to provide that pretty soon, so it would have to be this week that those comments are incorporated. Hope you all had a chance to read it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I did have a chance to read it. I don't have any recommendations for this evening. However, I'd like a chance to go over it again with my red pen.
Hoping you run out of ink.
Now, I appreciate you putting this together, and like I said, my first go-through, it looks good. I just would like an opportunity to look at it one more time.
Sure. I mean, this is a little bit different than we've been doing it in the past, because in the past, we had like 20 different budget recommendations, and Tony and I have talked about this, is you have 20 goals and objectives, and you basically have no goals and objectives because there's so many of them. But it is front-loaded with the situation we're in town, and as a narrative that frames how we're going to approach this. And I have a pretty strong feeling that at the end of that, whatever we decide is the message, we're telling the town administrator to stay within the parameters, but we're not telling him how to color between the lines.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I actually met with the department heads this morning. I had a department head meeting because we obviously are anticipating getting the budget message, which I kind of look from the board as really general policy guidance around the budget. And what I mentioned to them was my job and our job with them is to understand the intent of the board and then put that into actionable, specific guidance that will come from me to them to meet the overall general policy direction that the board wishes to advance with the budget message for FY '27. So we've already sort of internally starting to get ourselves geared up for this when it's issued in its final form, and have laid out a number of milestones between now and early January when we plan to present the budget to the board. So all the milestones to review the budget, when things will be due leading up to that, along with the capital stuff. So once this gets issued, we'll be ready to hit the ground running to start putting our stuff together.
And Eric Kinshirf is going to be here at some point, correct?
So what you have coming up is on the 22nd, he and I will give a current year, what's called the current year financial assessment. some of you've seen in bits and pieces, but we're going to collate that into a short PowerPoint presentation for the board. But looking ahead in early November, we'll have our free cash certified by then, and we'll be presenting the board with a full presentation on prior year financial performance for FY '25. So that'll be a more extensive look at how our prior year execution went from soup to nuts. He's already working on that for me, and I think putting both of those together, we'll get the audit report for FY '24 will be presented October 6th. So we're lining up all the dominoes, so to speak, that will give us all the indications about what we're looking at moving forward for FY '27 in terms of any trend analysis and that which will become important for finalizing the budget for next year.
So, Anita,
I don't have anything to say. I did read it.
Mark,
Please thank Eric. He gave a little narrative to go with the Munis report. The Munis report is like Greek hieroglyphics. He gave the narrative, which is very, very good. I believe it's in the packet, so people, even in the public, can read it and get a sense of where the town is at right now.
Yeah,
So-
we'll talk to more of that on Monday, because again, that's the current year financial, our current year financial assessment, so that sets the framework for looking forward for next fiscal year.
Jeff?
Well, thank you for putting this together. I, like Pete, will like to work a little with it.
Sure.
I will state for the record that the overall message is a solid one. I do appreciate the protect and invest in our current assets, both our workforce and our infrastructure, as I feel those are the two most important things that this town can support going forward, while really not looking for new and extra projects, which is something I think the previous board had discussed in the previous budget message. So definitely something we can work with, so thank you.
Thank you. So please send in whatever comments you might have, as I try to incorporate as I understood what each of the members felt about various things, so that they could be recapped in this. And I know Mark had some comments too, going back about, hey, how come, as a matter of fact, Tony and I had that discussion, how come some things have been on the back burner for like 5 years, 8 years, and if it was couched as an emergency 8 years ago and it's still sitting there, then maybe it's not as much of an emergency as it seemed at the time.
We had that conversation this morning.
Yes, I'll bet. So, all right. This is probably going to be analogous to the other situation. I know you had sent something in, Jeff, but I also know that Mark has worked on something. We're not to the point where, at least with the last position of the board, of approaching the select board in Chatham yet, nor do we know who would be the two that are going to be doing that. So before we get too far in this, I'd kind of like to know, I mean, Pete had mapped out a process, and I'd kind of like to know where we're at. Has that subcommittee, the school committee, come up with anything?
Yeah. And that's why I sent what I sent.
Okay, but I mean,
They're asking for the why from this board.
they don't get to know the why. There is an obligation on their part by next year to review the agreement.
Well, I'm sorry, can you repeat that for me?
Yeah,
They don't get,
inside of that agreement, they have to reevaluate where they are. There's a requirement in the Monomoy School Agreement
aware.
to be able to do that. The why, we've been saying all along. The question is, how deep into the why do they want to get? We are at the point where we cannot sustain Monomoy increasing a budget 7% or 8% and have us afford it without an override.
I
That's a
don't,
why.
and I don't disagree with you, Mr. Chair. I was hopeful that my email to the board would have been in the packet. I don't see why we wouldn't work collaboratively with the school committee with their simple request of, could you just please articulate the why? And I have the email up here. I'm not going to read it.
No, we all got it.
Well, I understand, but the public hasn't seen it. And I've been getting phone calls from the public saying, could you answer to the or to the school committee as to the why? So if this board has no intention, or if this board is going to take the position that the school committee has no right to understand our why, and that they should just act,
That is not what I said.
then why don't you repeat it? Clear it up for me, please.
We don't need to provide a why at this point beyond the fact that we're at the juncture where we cannot sustain a 7 or 8% increase without an override.
They want to know why. It's no different, well, I'm not going to get into stuff we talk about in executive session. They want more information than we can't afford it. That was the information I put in the email. Fiscal reality is that the town of Harwich is currently operating very close to the levy limit. The data and forecast for FY '27 may represent a down year. The cost of the sewer project has yet to be realized by our taxpayers. Future sewer projects require funding. Monomoy Regional School District budget continues to increase. 8 union negotiations are still in process. Those add to the why for the school committee to then work from to understand better where this select board is.
Well, let's back up a second, though.
Of course.
Tony went and visited Scott. I think you should probably report on that first, because the budget the school committee gets, they don't generate, they receive it from the superintendent. So let's hear from that.
Yeah, we didn't get into a lot of detail about the agreement, other than for me to understand, because I think it went to a subcommittee, is that correct, of the school committee, trying to understand their process on when we may hear something back from them. So their budget development process, much like ours, they get, he gets direction from the school committee, creates the budget, and passes it up to them, and a little bit later timeline than what we generally do for our part of the budget, non-school related. So we did talk through a little bit about the why that came back from Select Board Member Handler's visit to the school committee. Remember, he brought that back to us, so that's where that came from. And I think what they're trying to get at from the why, when they get ready to open the agreement for what's in there, is just getting an understanding of the mathematical dynamics involved in the school budget and how it affects different towns. Now, if you don't have to go back too far in history, DY, where Dennis and Yarmouth were at odds with one another, which ended up in some legal action as well, facing, I think, a very similar type, problem as we face, where you have a little bit of a lopsided scenario going on. And we did talk a little bit about, you get to a point, a balancing, a tipping point, if you will, where just going off of simply population can all of a sudden shift the dynamic in such a way that the burden is heavily shifted to the town that has the majority of the population. And so I think what Dennis and Yarmouth were able to do and eventually come to agreement was, we're able to back the clock up and have a discussion about where is that reasonable split by which you say, this is the maximum we're ever going to, look at. And so population only takes you so far. Let's say it's an 80-20 or whatever the split is. And that's the maximum that you ever really need to deal with. So I think what we need to do is just get some of the math behind that, and how the changing in school population has affected the Harwich budget to a point that it becomes, as Mr. Howell said, becomes unsustainable with the type of increases that our schools see on a fairly regular basis in terms of the percentage. So I think that's what they're kind of looking for, how we approach it. I think more of as a preparation for when that discussion happens, we come in prepared with, okay, here's the Harwich situation, here's the data to back it up, and why we need to have a frank discussion about how should the agreement be changed, so that one side is not overburdened with simple population math.
And it's not just, I understand where you're coming from, Jeff, but it's not just what burden that we can sustain or can't sustain for us. Because if this starts becoming a problem and we're funding almost 80% of their budget, it becomes a problem for students in Chatham too, because last year and the year before, they made substantial contributions from what is essentially their free cash, their excess and deficiency fund, that propped up their budget. Now, that's not sustainable, and they've indicated that this year that's not going to happen. So the position that we were at with their budget last year isn't even the position that we're at, because they funded that in part by something that came out of their own pocket, not out of ours. And this year, I do not believe that, I think Mr. McMillan had indicated that a while ago, that I don't believe that they are in a position to to devote a whole lot of excess and deficiency to prop up the operation budget again. So this would be the third year. At some point or another, they're not going to do that, and then we're really looking at an increase, because artificially, our contribution wasn't as big as it should have been based on what they were trying to do to operate. And so we were only representing 90-something% as opposed to 100% of it. But we're going to have to split up the 100%. And Pete's thought in the past, and that's one of the possible solutions, is we share capital stuff 50-50, because you have to have a building no matter how many kids you got going into it. Maybe that's one thing we want to consider. But the why is, we're hurtling towards a position where if we're responsible for 80% of their budget, and we can't sustain that within our budget without cutting our own services, there's going to be a problem. And that historically happened in Dennis and Yarmouth, and it was ugly. And once it starts getting ugly, it takes a while for everybody to settle back and just talk to each other. I don't want to see that.
Well, Mr. Chair, I agree with everything you've said. I have put in hundreds of hours, and I know Mark has too.
And Pete.
Mark and I have talked about it. I haven't talked about it with you, with Anita, or Pete.
Okay. I did it at one point myself.
Everything you just said has been said multiple times in the past. You're telling me as if I don't know it. So we're not, I can't remember the word used, but we're not hurtling toward not being able to, we're there. We are there. There's a lot of money that this town has to come up with to fund the school budget that exceeds the operational budget of the rest of the entire town. And we are sitting idle and doing nothing. That is my position on this. The school committee has asked a month ago, just give us more information. They are an elected board with a huge responsibility. And all they're asking for from us is communication and collaboration. And we're not giving it.
And again, the budget comes from the superintendent, and that's the most important step, was that Tony met with the superintendent first.
Okay, what are we doing next?
That's why it's on the agenda.
What are we doing next? Are we going to I just want to know if we're going to provide them with their answer to the why.
Yes.
And when.
Yes, but it's going to be stuff that we've already said.
Well, but I don't think, okay. I'll yield.
Mark?
Yeah, I see where you're both coming from. Without a finance director, it's tough to kind of project this forward, but I'm hoping, Mr. Chair, we can use Eric Kinshirf to kind of project our expenses going out, our revenues, so that you can see on a plain piece of paper that we're gonna have a deficit, we have to go for an override. And I think that's what Jeff is saying the school committee needs. They need some data, hard data, that normally we'd have a finance director here, we could just get it. But I think if we call upon Eric Kinshirf, he knows, he was a finance director, or he worked in the town of Dennis, he knows what the school committee would be looking for. So I think he could be very helpful. And, you know, I think we're in reach of the formulas. You know, there's a Hamilton Essex that brings in 50-50 on capital costs, works in equalized valuation and student counts. Chatham is a very wealthy town with equalized valuation. Or, as Dr. Carpenter said, you go back to like a 70-30 split when we first regionalized. So I think the basics are there, but I think that in terms of what Jeff is saying, what you're saying, we could simply solve it by going to Edward Kinshirf, tell him what they're looking for, and I bet you get something for us to show to that.
Tony,
school
could you
committee.
work with him this week to get some sort of projection on that?
Of course. I can.
Okay.
I will.
We can bring it back then with that projection.
Yeah, I'll see what, I mean, I know they're deep in making sure we get our free cash stuff out and closing the book. So let me talk to him tomorrow, see what we can put together. It might take a week
The only
or so.
element he doesn't have is that they've been using excess and deficiency to prop up their operations over the last 2 years, so he would
Yeah,
have
it's
to-
similar to,
he'd
we
have
were
to
using
plug
free
in
cash to balance the budget.
what would
right?
happen if we actually were responsible for the whole amount, and then the dynamic going forward, where does that put us?
Okay.
'Cause, I mean, Jeff's right, I mean, we're at parity with the operations of the town. Out of the 70-something million dollars, we're heading towards it being 50-50. We've never been at that level in terms of education and the town side. Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did we get an actual response from the school committee or the school department? No.
We did.
No, I mean a written response, a request.
I don't know I don't know. I know that they spoke about it at their meeting. I brought it back to this board because I was at that meeting, and then I sent you the emails. So maybe in their opinion, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Piekarski, they felt that that might have been sufficient as to the why. But I would like to reserve the right to go back and look at my emails to see if something did come across our desk that was a formal ask.
I
can't remember.
I don't recall seeing one, which is
Yeah.
why I asked the question, because I know during their agenda items, you're not allowed to participate. So I didn't know if they actually engaged in conversation with you,
They
or what took place during that evening. I have no problem trying to provide a why, but, you know, I think over the past year plus, we've been articulating the various whys. I have no problem putting it on paper. But I'm also not convinced that we're going to be able to get them the exact dollar numbers that they may or may not be looking for. You know, to Select Board Member Kelleher's point, you know, we're operating without a finance director for a little bit of time now. And so projections haven't been something that we've done well since I've been back on the board. And although it is important, one, it's not the only concern that we have, and two, I don't know that it has to be an absolute. So I don't think we have to tell them that on this day and at this time, that this is when we're gonna hit the wall. We have concern, and what we're trying to eliminate is hitting that wall. And if they don't take it at face value, then I don't know what else we can do for them, other than we get to that point, and then all hell breaks loose. So this isn't, you know, let's sneak a few more bucks out of the school board. No, we want to support the schools, but we want to do it in an intelligent way that we can also support the rest of the community. And so if we can provide them some information that they requested, meaning some of the whys, I'm happy to do it, but I don't know it's going to get as granular as some folks are looking for.
Can I speak to that, Mr. Chair? if I
Sure.
may? Perfectly put. I think,
You can end there, that was great.
no. I got a little more for you, Pete.
Aren't you glad you stayed?
My money's worth.
I told you the cover charge started at 7.
I owe you some money.
At the end of the day, this board needs a plan. We were the ones who requested a review of the agreement. Since July 1, I've been asking for this to be part of an agenda because we were going to run out of runway and have to miss, we've probably already missed it because we have to bring it before our town meeting, Chatham has to bring it before their town meeting. We don't know what the school committee is asking for. We haven't reached out to the school committee to say, tell us what you're looking for, narrow the scope a little bit, give us a little bit more information than just answer the why. I don't know why we haven't done that.
Well, in fairness, if I can interrupt, please. I was waiting for a response.
From whom?
The school board, we sent them a letter.
Their response was and it was in multiple meetings that they had, and granted, Pete, if they haven't written us a formal ask, but it was presented at multiple open meetings, and we've gotten multiple emails, and a board member, me, the liaison to the school committee, brought it to this board saying, Mr. Chair, we're looking for a Y. To that end, I was told by the chair, I'm not sure why you were there, kind of, and we're not doing it that way. And I said, I was there just to hear what was going on, and to that end, you said you wanted to hear more about what I heard. As the chair of this board, the next step I would have taken would have been to reach out to the school committee and ask for clarification. We have to work on this together, or we're gonna sit idle for another 2 months, they're gonna sit idle and do their business for the next 2 months. It's gonna come to budget cycle, and as I put here, once it's in budget cycle, we've lost the ability to have any kind of negotiation whatsoever. And we're just gonna tell them what we can afford, or kind of like what we did last year, right? But just earlier, give them a heads up. And lastly, to your point, of course they know that we are in a position where we want to work on this agreement. They've known that for, I don't know how long now.
Long time.
Long time. There has been no discussion since July 1 at all. Now, whether it's their fault or our fault,
I'm not looking to point fingers.
I'm not either. But someone's got to move. Someone has to take action. It can't be me. I brought to the board their ask. I thought that would suffice. Maybe I was wrong. Clearly, I was. So thank you.
Well, I'll end this by saying that we have heard from them from last year claiming that we never told them before their budget was formulated that we were going to have a problem. That was their position. If you hadn't told us so late, we'd be able to address this. We have been addressing this. Maybe not in the way that Mr. Handler wants on his own, but we sent a letter. There was a process that we voted on. They haven't responded to it. I'm just saying that if it comes to the point where they're in front of us and there's a 7 or 8% budget that they're proposing, it may be untenable and it may not be approved. It may go to town meeting with a recommendation that we turn it down. I don't want to get to that point. It doesn't have to get to that point. But if they're not going to acknowledge that we made the ask or have a conversation, and this isn't really what the setup for a liaison is for, because this is really a negotiation of some sort. We have to get some sort of inclination from them what they're going to do, because the drop dead part of this is the superintendent of the school comes in and he said, here's our budget, and we say, whoa, we can't afford that. And then you're really in trouble, because there hasn't been any warning whatsoever. We warned them in July, just not the way you would like to have. We said that there was going to be a capacity problem and that we were not going to be able to address that, especially as it grows. And it occurred to me recently that the past 2 years also have excess and deficiency obscuring what the budget really was, because the budget really was higher. And our portion of that would have been higher had they not plowed some money in, but they don't have that ability this year. And if they do this year, which they indicated they didn't earlier in the year, then they're certainly not going to next year, because that's basically a fund like ours. It's leftover money that they can plow into their operations. So my point here is we all have to do this together. It can't be one or two of us doing it separately. It's on the agenda, and I think that one of the things that we need to do is find out, are they going to reply in writing to what we're saying, so that we can reply in kind to what it is the request is.
And with that said, you know, to Jeff's point, that the clock is ticking. And if their avenue was to send the message back by the liaison, then so be it. I don't necessarily think it was the best method, but that's fine. I'm happy and willing to work with the email Jeff sent to craft a response on the why. But again, the only thing I'll articulate is it may not be as granular as some folks are looking for, and it won't be that granular.
And I understand it won't be.
Yeah.
And if you could do that draft, I would appreciate it.
And I'm not looking for it to be granular.
Yeah.
And I don't think they are either. This is going to take some time for us to be able to get the information to the school committee. And if I were Chatham, I'd be sitting back going, tell me, like, you can't afford it? That's why you want us to reopen this? No, we have to show them. We have to show them the data. And I put that in my email. So I think we've beaten this up enough. I don't have anything more to say.
Okay, so you'll take a shot at that as a draft? Because you just said you would.
Honestly, I don't have the capacity until sometime in October, so I'd like someone else to take a swing at it.
Tony, you want to
Straight
give a
out.
shot at it?
Why not?
It flows downhill, Tony.
I'm well aware. Yeah, I have some ideas just on how we might build the narrative part of this, so we'll work on the staff to do that.
Okay, so, moving along. Before we go any further, I know it says Anthony Pagliaro, he's not here tonight, but the request was for the Rotary Club. He was fronting them for it, so before it looks like he's going to have this bash-out party that everyone wants to get invited to. That's what this is about. It's their major fundraiser each year.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve a special permit application for a one-day liquor license, wines and malt, for the Rotary Club of Harwich for an event to be held on September 20th, 2025, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Event to be held at 15 Great Western Road.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the application for a one-day liquor license for the Rotary Club. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Possible vote on the legal services request for proposals.
Okay, so we made a couple of additional changes on the legal service request for proposal that was sent out over a course of a number of meetings. I call your attention to the section 1.1. Again, most of the changes were just to make it very clear to any potential respondents about having the opportunity to bid for an individual service or the full scope of services outlined in section 3, so that's right up in the front. Again, we called out the specific categories: general municipal law, labor and employment law, and regulatory and land use planning, section 1.2. We continue to update the table as we move to the right, just for whenever we get the go ahead to put this out on the street, so those will change as required. So some changes in section 3 on purpose and scope of services. Again, we broke them out, A, B, and C, under the 3 specific categories, and then down at the bottom, proposals are encouraged to submit proposals for any or all of the above requested services and should indicate which of the broad categories mentioned in section 1.2 above that they wish to be considered for. So again, it's just to highlight to any prospective respondents on how we want to receive
And
their
just as
proposals.
important on the method of award is that we reserve the right to make the awards under this individually or in the aggregate, whatever is deemed to be in the best interest of the town.
Yes. Now, if it's said exactly the way you said it, I'll have to double check, but yes,
I
that
believe
is
so, because I
that
think
is
I
the
gave you
purpose.
that.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
motion to approve the request for proposals for town legal services as written in tonight's packet.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to advance to approve this and send it out. I will say that because of the way this is set up, that whoever it is that we get as respondents, we're going to wind up interviewing so that we can feel comfortable. It's not just buying widgets. So there'll be more conversation about this when we put it out. So any other conversation? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. We all submitted our people. I think Jeff had said he was reserving the right to switch gears if he wanted to.
Happy with my pick.
Okay. So we're going to agree without giving their addresses. The people that are on this thing are the folks that we've all put into the packet and to disclose it for the public. Jeff, yours was?
Norm Clark.
And Mark?
Karen Doucette?
Mine was J. Duncan Berry.
Sandra Hall?
Jack Mon.
Okay. So, unless somebody's got some egregious comment to make about somebody where the board is going to vote to reject them, those are the people we're riding with. And we can pass those names along to Rick White.
Okay?
Okay. Discussion on refinements to the finance director search process.
Okay, so the board asked, we went through a number of iterations at the last meeting on potential scenarios at an option 1 and 2. The board wanted me to go back and essentially create a hybrid process, again, with the expectation that we want to get this recruitment out and hopefully recruit in the shortest reasonable amount of time. So you'll see option 3, the hybrid version, really the part that I would say changed the most was reinserting back in that the select board will perform the interviews of any of the finalist candidates. I did make a note, again, timing, obviously on the board's mind, is there could be an option to have an off meeting to do those interviews with a sole focus, so you're not time constrained in any stretch to interview, X number of candidates in a more concerted meeting than at a general meeting. So that could potentially shorten the time frame a little bit. And then I just wanted to also note that, again, the projected start date at the beginning of December, again, bringing somebody in of this caliber and stuff, we don't really know what obligations they have to their current employer, so that date is certainly notional to some degree. So essentially, it was a combination of option 1 and 2, and again, that middle part was the part that really changed, again, to put the board back in for the interview process and the vote to appoint at a follow-up meeting from the interviews.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
make a motion to approve the recruitment process, in-house recruitment process for the finance director as outlined by the town administrator in option 3.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Second, go ahead.
And a third.
Anita's got it.
Okay, so we need a seconded. All right, so it's been moved and seconded to go forward with the recruitment process in-house as described. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair,
Was-
go ahead, sorry.
Oh, there was a second piece.
That's where I was going.
Oh, you're right away? Okay.
Oh, yeah, oh, no, go ahead.
No, I didn't know if everybody saw
I'm looking
it.
at the clock.
That's okay, go ahead.
That tuna sandwich is in the drawer at home.
Pete's on the clock.
Mindful lunch.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would vote to, motion to approve the recommended salary for advertisement purposes as recommended by the town administrator, which indicates $170,000 plus or minus, negotiable for exceptionally qualified applicants.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the pay scale, plus or minus, as recommended by the town administrator. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Now. Anybody want to take on the contract?
Okay, so contracts, this is the Northeast Nursery one, this is the irrigation contract for the golf course. We had 3 questions that were asked last week. To bring back, Mr. Handler asked about the lightning protection system. So we do have one, it's 20 years old. This project will upgrade and replace that system to new and current standards and technology.
Thank you.
Second was a question related to why did we do the materials and equipment in one and installation in the other. As I mentioned last week, my guess was for cost savings, which it was, because we were able to buy off the state bid list. In addition, we got to spec the exact equipment, manufacturer and type and everything that we preferred to have somebody install. And then lastly, the question was, did the golf staff have weigh in on this proposal, project, and selection? The answer to that was yes. So I recommend signing of this contract.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
move to approve the contract with Northeast Nursery, Inc. in the amount of $715,377.36 for supplies and materials for the Cranberry Valley Golf Course irrigation upgrade.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the contract to Northeast Nursery. I'm always fascinated by the fact that they could come out with something that's nearly $750,000 to 36 cents. So be it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Member reports. Let's start with Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wasn't really ready for that.
Oh.
What?
Okay, yeah, you're right. The town administrator's cut off on the bottom of
I'm going, I'm working on it
Respect.
very quickly.
I saw you
Time.
getting up.
In fact, now, take your time.
I saw you getting up. Well, I'm
Most of
done.
my time has been appointing employees, which is a great thing, so that's really the big thing. So we filled the dockhand position that was vacated when we moved someone up to the assistant harbor master, so I'm just wanting to announce the appointment of dockhand James Adamsons, retired not retired, but veteran Coast Guard member, 40 years in the boating and docking experience, will be a great addition to the harbor. Second, I think I mentioned Dennis Wastewater has reached out to us, so that's a good thing. We do have our S&P call scheduled for October 1st. That's for the borrowing for the band anticipation note that'll fund Great Sand, or the non-SRF part of Great Sand Lakes, 2 ambulances, a pumper, and the Chatham IMA payment that we have coming up in March. I think that's it.
Now, Jeff.
Now? Okay,
Now.
Thank you. Just a question on the assistant town administrator. Charter specifies 441 that the town administrator will appoint. Do we advertise for that? What's our, I guess I'm looking for what our next steps are.
Well, I would say normally if I was the permanent town administrator, it would have been done already.
That's the
But as an
reason I'm asking.
interim, I think it's a discussion to have with the board, certainly as someone who's come into a position where the assistant has been vacant.
Or the vacant was the
Yeah.
assistant. We-
The decision was made to allow me to be the one to actually bring that person on as sort of my second and be able to do that recruitment as a key part of my team. It can work either way. I really, in this particular instance, would sort of defer to the board about how they, wish to proceed in that.
Well, to that point,
Certainly capable of doing it, but.
well, of course you are.
Sure.
But we have a meeting on the 22nd.
Yes.
I believe our assistant town administrator's last day is the 26th. So I'm looking for the board to give direction. I was hopeful it would happen sooner, but if not, I think it's something that should be on the agenda for next week for discussion. Probably
Yeah,
already
it isn't on, so we're not going to vote on it tonight.
Right, and the housing trust, I sent a few questions regarding the housing trust. Do we have any updates on the opinions from council that I don't have? I'd like to see them.
Yep, well, I was supposed to get that today, I did not get it, so I'll follow up tomorrow. So one of them, I think I mentioned, one of them was a phone call that I needed to have put into writing, so I don't have that yet, so as soon as I do, I was expecting it today, but I did not get it today, so
Okay.
I'll follow up.
And just so the board understands, the next meeting for the trust is on the 6th. So we do have two opportunities to work this out before we meet again, to have somebody sit in that 5th seat. Thank you.
Oh, I will say, since you brought that up, though, that the policy that was promulgated for access to legal counsel, it applies to the trust as well as everybody else. So,
Yeah, that email got sent to the trust.
okay, just so that when you get there, you have
Tony
that
did a great
discussion.
job forwarding that email to the trust right away.
I didn't attend it in person, I saw it from a distance, but I know there was a lot of senior softball league in town this week. I wanted to thank Mr. Cacciadorian for overseeing that league, and the highway department, who takes great care of our facilities. From what I've heard, it was a great tournament, and it brought in a lot of business for the town. Thank you.
I wanted to play, but apparently I didn't meet their standards. So, Anita? Pete?
You could have been part of the entertainment.
Could have been.
A couple of quick things, if I could. I noticed Ms. Mintz signed off on a couple of these documents. Was she assigned to the town of Harwich as Ed Spellman was, or just happened to be a rotation that you picked up?
Well, Ed's the primary, but he has his staff, and Jen being one of them, working Harwich issues
No,
together.
Ed's no longer with us, right?
No, he is not.
Right.
Yeah, so, did I say Ed? I
Yeah,
meant
yeah, so
Eric.
you're
I
talking
meant
Eric, right. But, so that's what I was asking. So Eric had assigned Ed here, and he was pretty much our go-to. Has Ms. Mintz been assigned here, or was it just a rotation?
She is, but
Yeah.
he's the one that.
Correct.
He's the
Understood.
one that's here, yeah.
Understood. Okay.
I meet with him every Monday to
Yep.
go over.
Perfect, thanks. And the only other thing, if we could, I know you give the weekly updates regarding Phase 3 of the sewer update. Lots of questions regarding 3A, because a lot of markings going on the ground. People think the excavators are coming in tomorrow. So if we could just give a generalized update.
Sure.
In the next couple meetings, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got nothing, so if anybody wants.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Move to adjourn, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good.